The NBC Pro Basketball Talk season previews will ask the questions each of the 30 NBA teams must answer to make their season a success. We are looking at one team a day until the start of the season, and it begins with a look back at the team's off-season moves. Last season 2,953 missed the playoffs for the fifth straight season. Know what you did last summer? Orlando fired general manager Rob Hennigan, hired Jeff Weltman, and did little else. The Magic are still jammed with Hennigan's mistakes. At least they drafted Jonathan Isaac number 5 and signed Jonathan Simmons, Shelvin Mack, Maurice Spates and Aaron Afflalo. 3 questions the Magic must answer. 1. Are Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac complementary long-term pieces? Gordon and Isaac are Orlando's most valuable player, but they also might overlap too much on the court. Gordon is best at power forward, as last year's experiment at small forward painfully showed. His ball skills are an asset at power forward, a liability at small forward. He also had a surprisingly tough time defensively at small forward, where he looked uncomfortable chasing smaller players around the perimeter. Get him closer to the paint more often, and Gordon should excel. Isaac is more of a combo forward, mostly because we haven't seen him in the NBA yet. He'll likely play small forward for now, not just because of Gordon, but because Isaac isn't yet strong enough to handle the physicality of NBA bigs. But long-term, his lack of an advanced handle could push him to power forward. Maybe Gordon and/or Isaac develop enough perimeter skills to complement each other. Or perhaps Orlando finds guards who can handle the ball enough to relieve the forwards. Obviously, positional designations can be draconian. But, in broad strokes, the differences between small forward and power forward in the modern NBA speak to a potentially incohesive pairing between Gordon and Isaac. Though Isaac is just a rookie, Gordon is extension eligible, headed toward restricted free agency. It'd be nice if the Magic knew whether the two most valuable players can optimize the value together. 2. Is Elfrid Payton worth keeping as starting point guard? Payton is also already extension eligible, which could delay Weltman from ever putting his imprint on this team. On the other hand, Weltman doesn't want to lose a good point guard before he breaks out. A lightning rod for the previous regime, Payton played well enough late last season to instill confidence he might be a long-term starter. He must extend that all-around play over a larger sample to prove it. If he does, the Magic will have a big decision about how much to pay him unless they've already extended him. If he doesn't, they'll have to find a new starting point guard, maybe drafting someone and starting this process over unless they've already extended Payton, which would be a major problem. 3. Will Frank Vogel oversee a top-end defense? The Magic are too far along a winnow plan to punt the season before it even begins. The path to the playoffs starts with tapping a defensive potential not realized last season. Vogel's Pacers defense is ranked 9th, 1st, 7th and 3rd in his 5 full seasons in Indiana. Despite Serge Ibaka, Bismack Biyombo and Gordon being expected to comprise an elite defensive front line, Orlando's defense ranked just 22nd last season. Ibaka is gone, and this team shouldn't have as many problems with being oversized. The athletic Simmons is built to defend the wing. Starting center Nikola Vucevic has improved defensively under Vogel. The 6'4" Elfrid Payton is big enough to disrupt opposing point guards. The lengthy Isaac should terrorize passing lanes in due time. It all looks solid on paper, but the same was said at this time last year. The burden ultimately falls on Vogel, who was touted as a defensive mastermind when hired, and, not for nothing, is working for an executive who didn't hire him. Mark Cuban has some pretty incredible stories to tell. The Dallas Mavericks owner went on Snoop Dogg's YouTube show to spin some tales, one of them being how he met NBA legend Julius Erving for the first time. Cuban's story starts at 257 in the video above. In it, he talks about the first major player he was interested in speaking to after becoming an NBA owner. That player was Dr. J, and in his story Cuban says that he was essentially too nervous to go up and speak to the Philadelphia 76ers Hall of Famer. Via YouTube, my first All-Star game, I think it was DC that I went to, and I got tickets. I owned the team. An IC drive, J, and I did one of these. I gave my guy a camera, wasn't even a phone camera, it was a camera, and I'm like, you go stand over there. And I literally have framed in my office a picture of Dr. J just standing there, and me doing one of these smiles and mimics leaning out from behind someone. So there you have it. At one point in time, Mark Cuban was too afraid to go up and talk to Julius Erving. I feel like that's probably not the case these days, but I think some of us all have this kind of story with big names we see out and about. This year marks the 6th contest between the San Quentin Warriors and a team made up of staffers from the NBA squad from Oakland. And despite Golden State Warriors GM Bob Myers dropping an impressive stat line of 32 points and 31 rebounds, it was the inmate squad from San Quentin that came out on top, 103,102 during the closing seconds. It's just the second time in the 6 years of playing the squad from the NBA organization that the San Quentin players have taken home the victory. But perhaps more important than that was the impression that both sides left on each other after the game. Thanks to the video above, provided by ABC7, we were left with a great visual storytelling of the game. The Athletic's Marcus Thompson also went inside the prison to witness the game, and wrote what will perhaps turn out to be one of the most important features of 2017. Thompson's feature is required reading for an NBA fan, one in which he contemplates the nature not only of the game itself but how it is he stands on one side of the fence. Kudos to the Warriors for putting on this kind of event, and of course congratulations to San Quentin for the late game win. The athleticism and length of the modern NBA player is impressive. This makes today's defensive schemes that much harder to break down. It also makes breakdowns on defense that much more interesting as athletic finishes lead to big, showy plays. Those plays include alley-oop dunks, which happen more often than you think in the league. The NBA recently put together an entire supercut of alley-oops from the 201,617 NBA season for your viewing pleasure. Check out some of the best passes on high-flying dunks from the last season by watching the video above. The Dirk Nowitzki version of the Magic 8 Ball just says ask again later. Nowitzki signed up to play his 20th NBA season this summer, reaching a 2-year, $10 million contract with the only team HE's ever played for, the Dallas Mavericks. HE's won a title in Dallas, but this is now a team starting its rebuild. Dennis Smith Jr. looks like the first key piece. The question becomes, will this year be his last, or will he play out his contract? Nowitzki himself doesn't know. He said again he wants to see how this season plays out. He told Eddie Selfco of the Dallas Morning News at Nowitzki's annual Pro Tennis event in Dallas. If I miss another 30 to 40 games in a row, then obviously, it's not meant to be, he said. But if I can stay sort of healthy like I did at the end of the season, when I thought I moved okay and had some good games, then maybe we'll do 2 more seasons. But we'll see how it goes. Last season Nowitzki missed the first couple of months with an Achilles issue. He played in 54 games and averaged 14.2 points per contest when he did, but he was a slightly above average player at this point, not fully healthy and not the dominant force we've come to expect from the future Hall of Famer. He said he has worked hard to get in shape this summer to be able to be more of his vintage self this season. Nowitzki is taking the right approach, letting things play out then making his call. Meanwhile, tickets on the secondary market for the Mavs' final home game of the season against Phoenix on April 10th are selling at some crazy prices as fans anticipate this is the big German's last game. Should fans really spend like that for the Suns game? Ask again later.